Welcome to Sharika Talks, Unraveling the Truth, a journalist's quest. Subscribe for the truth.
Chapter 14, The Woman Who Tamed the Flame. Sharika sat on the plush sofa in the sprawling living room of Aravind uncle's bungalow, reeling inside. Her grandfather, Aditya Varma, and Aravind hadn't revealed what the surprise was. And frankly, she didn't care. Not after the things she discovered about Sachin. She didn't even know whether her assumptions were entirely correct. But she knew one thing. She wasn't going to take chances. No surprise could shake her. Or so she thought. Outside, the deep growl of a luxury engine echoed into the car porch. A sleek, black Toyota Velfire with the BBC logo etched on its side rolled smoothly into view. Uncle Aravind stood up, adjusting his blazer, and walked toward the front door. Sharika didn't even bother to look. The house staff, Mira Auntie, and two maids had been bustling since morning, preparing for something. Guests, maybe. But Sharika had told herself she wouldn't care, unless, of course, it was Sachin or Sukanya walking through that door, which she doubted. A deep chuckle escaped her at the thought, dry and ironic. But she was wrong. As the passenger door opened, a woman stepped out. She appeared to be in her 50s, dressed in an elegant brown sari with a border that shimmered subtly under the porch lights. Her poise was effortless, her movements graceful, her gaze warm but commanding. She carried the weight of experience like a badge. Sharika's jaw dropped. She stood up involuntarily. Her grandfather, smiling at her expression, rose and offered his hand to the guest as Aravind made the introduction. This is Mr. Aditya Varma, a renowned investor and philanthropist from Kerala. He's one of the main investors in Calamari, the Ayurvedic brand sponsoring our program. Pleasure to meet you, the woman said, shaking Aditya's hand. Sharika tried to gather herself. Her mouth was still slightly open, her eyes wide as the guest stepped through the door. Sheela Bhatiya, the most respected, celebrated, and fearless journalist in modern India. Sheela Bhatiya, the woman who shaped Indian media with investigative stories that reshaped national discourse. A fearless journalist, editor, and field reporter since 1979, she had begun her journey in Gujarati newspapers and steadily climbed to dominate the national landscape. If she had been born in the United States, she would have had 4 or 5 Pulitzers by now. Her work had shaped India's public discourse for over 4 decades. She was the first and only journalist to have interviewed underworld dons like Dawood Iqbal and Kabir Lala in their own dens. Every existing photograph of Dawood Iqbal in the public domain was thanks to her. She was also the first to recognize the caliber of the now Prime Minister Narayan R. Modi, back when he was just a student activist. She had covered his college debates and noted his fierce oratory skills and strategic vision. She wrote an op-ed predicting his political rise. That prediction came true during the 2002 Gujarat riots, when Modi, then the chief minister, took decisive action despite global backlash. She called him a man of action, not gimmicks, and history had proven her right. She had reported live during the Gujarat riots. She was on the front lines during the Kargil War, reporting fearlessly. She was there at ground zero during the Mumbai bomb blasts. She had been editor-in-chief of national giants like The Hindu, The Indian Express, and India Today before walking away from it all. And now, in her mid-70s, she was the most valuable freelance journalist in the country, and Sharika's real-life hero. Unlike Lisbeth Salander and Mikhail Blomqvist, the fictional characters who first inspired her, Sheela Bhatiya was real, flesh and blood, her idol. As Aravind introduced Sharika, Sheela offered her hand. Sharika almost fainted. She took it, gently. This was the hand that had written thousands of articles that shook the country. As they moved to the dining hall, 2 more field assistants joined them, Anuj and Farhana, both in their early 30s, both with backpacks slung over one shoulder and notepads in hand. A tall man with long hair and a beard followed, a BBC field cameraman named Riaz. The long teakwood dining table glistened under the chandelier light. Plates clinked, water was poured, but the real feast was yet to begin. As they settled at the dining table, they were joined by BBC senior editor Ravindra Choudhary and assistant producer Sukumar Rao. Sheela smiled as she glanced around. She leaned forward. "Thank you for making this informal, Aravind. It helps." "Oh, it wasn't my idea. Aditya sir wanted it this way," Aravind said. "Oh, thank you. And I hear I'll have 2 assistants for this project?" "Sukumar from the network, and Sharika here as a working intern," Aravind said, pointing at Sharika. "She has a huge portrait of you in her room, Miss Bhatiya," Aditya added with a chuckle. "She's followed your work since she was 16. Sharika blushed, smiling sheepishly. She understood what their real surprise was. Her grandfather and Uncle Aravind had arranged not just a meeting with Sheela Bhatiya, but for her to actually work with her as an intern. She felt a chill through her spine and goosebumps of joy. In her mind, she was thinking about the 25-year-old Sheela Bhatiya walking into the Mumbai underworld to interview the self-proclaimed kingpin Kabir Lala. And here she was, trying to investigate someone who might be operating an underworld of his own, Sachin. And just like that, her decision to quit Project Umbra evaporated. "Wow," Sheela said, turning to Sharika. "I don't get many fan moments like that. Thank you." She glanced at everyone around the table as she began the meal. "So, let's get to it. We want to do a story that's going to be controversial, but true. I'm calling it Stolen Tears. It's about the trafficking of young girls from Nepal." She paused briefly. "We're calling it Stolen Tears," Sheela said, "because these girls didn't just lose their bodies. They lost their right to grieve, to scream, to cry. We're going to give their pain a voice, a name, a face." She looked Sharika and Sukumar straight in the eyes. "We'll dig into corrupt officials, interview survivors, and confront the brokers. There will be risks. We're cutting into the roots of a billion-dollar racket. If either of you can't handle the heat, stick to desk jobs." Although those weren't her exact words, that's how Sharika heard them. After lunch, Sheela detailed her initial findings. Sharika leaned in, absorbing every word. "The racket has 2 main recruitment tactics," Sheela explained. Traffickers go into remote Nepalese villages, sometimes Indian ones, and convince parents to send their daughters away with promises of jobs in cities. Or they pose as sages and take girls away under religious pretenses, reviving a twisted version of the Devadasi system. And almost always the parents agree, either for the hope of a better life or out of religious fear. And if they don't agree, they may be forced. Sharika flinched. She remembered stories like that. By the time they reach their final destination, most have already been raped by the agents, by the transporters, and sometimes corrupt government officials. They're broken, too terrified to resist. The majority are moved by trains. Entire coaches are sometimes handed over to these networks by bribed officials. Some girls are shipped in containers from Kolkata and Mumbai to foreign ports. Others end up in brothels of the big cities. It's massive. Riaz muttered, "Last year, we found containers with padded interiors, soundproofed, ventilated, built to move humans like cargo." Sharika felt her stomach turn. "And then there's Kailash Satyajit's organization," Sheela added. "He's done more than any NGO, some say more than the police themselves." Kailash Satyajit, the Nobel Peace Prize winning activist fighting trafficking with his rogue underground rescue network. There are rumors that his team operates vigilante-style units along the Indo-Nepal border. With the Nobel Prize money and the flood of donations that followed, they expanded rapidly. He had agreed to give an interview for their documentary, but they weren't the focus. She paused. There are other heroes, too. Passengers, locals. Sometimes, even a single person can make a difference. Sharika flashed back to that train, that moment, the shadowy man who'd saved her life. She remembered Sachin. She remembered the train. She glanced involuntarily at her right forearm where Sachin had bandaged her. The problem is, Sheela continued, that it's just the tip of the iceberg. Delhi police tightened security after rescuing 30 girls in 2021, but it's not enough. This is a multi-billion-dollar empire built on the backs of stolen children. She looked at Sharika again. Our duty is to expose them. We'll interview Kailash Satyajit. Trace the routes. If possible, we'll follow a real racket in real time and film the rescue. Any questions? There were no questions, just silence. Sharika's face was glowing, her first real assignment, with Sheela Bhatiya, on a project that mattered. The meeting lasted until 6 p.m. Aravind and Aditya remained mostly as observers, smiling at Sharika's transformation. Sheela stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Assignments were given, interviews to arrange, locations to scout, research to compile, video crews to ready. As Sheela departed, Sharika walked her to the car. They exchanged numbers. By the time Sharika sat for dinner, she was already itching to get started. She rushed through the meal, ran up the stairs to the guest room, and practically dived onto her laptop. Aditya Varma, watching Sharika's excitement while sipping his Chivas Regal on the rocks, smiled contentedly. That bright girl may one day change the country, he told Aravind. Let's hope for the best. Aravind replied. Upstairs, Sharika opened her MacBook. Her first task was to prepare interview questions for Kailash Satyajit. By 11:30 p.m., she was done. She took a long breath. She had decided that Project Umbra would take second priority. Sachin wasn't going anywhere. His signals would keep pinging and would be saved thanks to the app Nandu helped develop. But Stolen Tears had a deadline, 6 weeks to impress the most revered journalist in India. After closing her MacBook, she opened her old Samsung, stared at the blinking dot, then whispered to herself, I'm not the girl who played with fire. I will become the woman who tamed the flame. Just like Sheela Bhatiya. Then she started working through the location data of Sachin during the past 2 weeks. And somewhere far away, a digital dot kept blinking. Sachin's signal, still alive. Just like that, the chase to tame the flame was restarted. End of chapter 14.
Thank you for watching Unraveling the Truth, A Journalist's Quest. Subscribe to stay updated on Sharika's journey. Stay tuned for the next part.
Disclaimer. Unraveling the Truth, A Journalist's Quest is a work of fiction. The experiences, ideas, and theories presented by the characters, including the books they write, are purely fictional and do not reflect real-world events, beliefs, or ideologies. While some incidents and characters may be inspired by real-world scenarios, they are entirely fictionalized for storytelling purposes. The author does not endorse or share the viewpoints expressed by any character in this novel. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or real events is purely coincidental. Viewer discretion is advised.